Everybody loves maps, unless you're a man in a car who prefers refusing to ask for directions. Jokes aside, maps can show us more than just where to go, and thanks to the internet, there are almost no limits on what they can be used to visualize. From population indicators to historic misconceptions, let's take a look at some examples of maps that will change your worldview. World population density. We know that there are areas of the world that are simply uninhabitable, like scorching deserts, Arctic tundras, and most of Australia. So where exactly do we fit the 7.8 billion people living on this planet? This is a world population density map representing the number of people per kilometer squared. The lighter areas indicate 0 to 10 people per square kilometer in different states and provinces across the globe. Empty-looking areas like Canada, Russia, and China's Tibet province come as no surprise thanks to elements like their rugged terrain and harsh weather. But the most densely populated areas such as the east coast of China, India, and parts of Europe contain over 1,000 people per kilometer squared. This makes Asia the most densely populated continent with 4.6 billion people living on it, followed by Africa with 1.3 billion, Europe at 747 million, Latin America and the Caribbean at 653 million, then North America with a sparse 368 million. And finally, Oceania with just 42 million. Suddenly it doesn't feel so crowded in here. The US versus the moon. It's hard to put into perspective just how vast the United States is. So how about we use the moon for scale? The moon has a constant diameter of 3,474 kilometers, which is only 27% of Earth's diameter of 12,715 kilometers pole to pole. Using this, you can get a better picture of just how big the states really is. And that's without including Alaska or Hawaii. From point to point in this image, which is from Point Arena, California to West Quoddy Head in Maine, the US measures 4,654 kilometers across. As it is, this version of the states can take up about 50% of the moon's circumference. Can someone go and dig Neil Armstrong back up? We've got work to do. Antipodes map. Ever wanted to make an Earth sandwich? It's when you place two pieces of bread on exact opposite points of the globe. I'm not making this up. This is honestly what kids get up to these days. Well, if the inclination ever arose to try and make this, you'd need an antipode map. Antipodes on a sphere like Earth are the pair of points farthest away from each other. So if you tried to make this sandwich anywhere in the US, you'd need a friend way out in the middle of the Indian Ocean. There are actually very few places on land with corresponding antipodes. Greenland to Antarctica might be a good bet, Spain and New Zealand could work, or maybe a spicy Argentina and China sandwich. Sometimes you just gotta love the internet. Wealth distribution in America. It's not just state lines that divide America. Wealth distribution sets harsh boundaries across rural and urban populations alike. The census taken by ESRI in 2018 highlights household incomes of city regions in 4 categories. Light blue dots on these maps show households earning over $100,000 a year. In purple it shows $50,000 to $100,000, in pink it's $50,000 to $25,000, and in orange they earn less than $25,000. A sweep over Los Angeles reveals that low earnings are centralized within the innermost part of the city around the downtown and South Los Angeles area. But the coastal regions of Santa Monica, Torrance, and Orange County are populated almost exclusively by those earning over $100,000. In contrast, New York has a district neighborhood wealth boundary between Manhattan and the Bronx. This isn't exactly news, but it does show that there is very little in between, with households earning over $25,000 pushed much further out into Queens. But then all surrounding areas exclusively populated by those earning $100,000 or more. Zooming out gives you a look at the bigger picture. The distribution over the United States shows a clear distinction between rural and urban areas. Rural states like Mississippi, Kentucky, and Georgia are home to the country's highest concentrations of poverty, with urban cities like New York, Chicago, and Washington providing hubs for insane amounts of wealth. Sharing is for toddlers and communists. MERCATOR projection. Now for the map schools were afraid to teach you about. This is an accurate map of the world, right? Wrong. This is the commonly known MERCATOR projection, a map designed in 1569. It became a standard as it followed a constant linear scale, making it easier for sailors to navigate the world. As a side effect of this, the map inflates the sizes of objects away from the equator, making them seem much bigger when in reality they're only a fraction of the size. If you want the real sizes, take a look at this animation made in 2018 which corrects the Mercator projection to reflect the relative size of each country. So in the original, Greenland appeared the same size as Africa, but its mass could actually fit inside Africa 14 times over. Russia appeared to be about 4 times the size of America, but is only about twice the size, so more comparable to South America. And Alaska takes up as much area on the map as Brazil, when if anything, Brazil is almost 5 times larger than Alaska. You may have gone to school, but you still got learning to do. Poles of inaccessibility. Do you hate people? Like, all people? Then I have the perfect map for you. This is the Oceanic Pole of Inaccessibility. It shows the place on Earth where you would be the furthest away from any landmass. It lies in the South Pacific Ocean about 2,688 kilometers from the nearest point of land. It's so remote that the closest human beings to it sometimes are the astronauts that pass overhead in the International Space Station. Now that's some serious solitude. On the other end of that spectrum, here's a map for people who have an unadulterated hatred for water, or rabies. This is the most extreme continental pole of inaccessibility, the point where you are the furthest away from any ocean. It's located in northwestern China, close to the Kazakhstan border, and is thought to be almost 2,645 kilometers from the nearest coastline. It's a thalassophobic's paradise. Light pollution. Let's move on to a lighter topic. Literally. Light pollution around the world gives a clear indicator of the most populated and developed areas by kicking huge amounts of light into the atmosphere from man-made sources. This map uses a visible infrared imaging radiometer suite to measure the zenith sky brightness. Some of the brightest sources you can easily pick out come from cities such as New York, Chicago, Shanghai, and Tokyo, as well as some others you might not expect, like almost all of the Netherlands and Prudhoe Bay in Alaska. Notably missing from the map are supposed world powers like North Korea, which is almost completely dark. Biggest army in the world, laughably small power supply, always a promising combination. Polluted rivers map. Sadly, pollution comes in many forms, and it's gotten so bad we can now accurately estimate where a lot of pollutants like plastic are being pumped into our oceans. The company Ocean Cleanup have created this probabilistic map showing hotspots of plastic pollution around the world. Areas such as Manila Bay in the Philippines are indicated to contain rivers which carry a combined 316,000 tons of plastic into the sea every single year. The Klang River of Kuala Lumpur alone carries over 15,000 tons into the ocean, and the Ulhas River of Mumbai drags along 16,600 tons. The contrast of river pollutants from Asia to America is staggering and highlights how current international business practices and use of cheap materials from these export countries is really taking its toll on our oceans. This leads to the death of a lot of marine wildlife, as well as increased water toxicity around the world. Remember, you are what you drink. Seas of plastic. But plastic entering the sea is just the beginning. It's estimated there are over 5 trillion plastic pieces with a combined weight of 268,940 tons currently washing around in our oceans. And this map from Dump Park shows the current distribution of those pieces. Just because America didn't look like it was dumping plastic doesn't mean it isn't affected. The North Atlantic Ocean contains an approximate 930 billion plastic pieces, many of which are gathering along the country's east coast and having a severe effect on coastal environments and the fishing industry. But countries in the North Pacific Ocean should be quaking in their boots, with 1.9 trillion pieces of plastic at a weight of 96,000 tons clogging up their shorelines. So when buying and disposing of plastic from now on, just think, WWGTD. What would Greta Thunberg do? Pollution death map. But pollution like this isn't just about saving the world, it's about saving people as well. In this map from the Global Alliance on Health and Pollution, data has been gathered on the human effects of modern pollution. That's pollution stemming from industrial activities like air, chemical, and soil contamination. This shows how many deaths per million have been caused by pollution and where it hit worst in the world. The highest area affected is Somalia, which is estimated to have 3,261 deaths per million caused by pollution. In the US, that shrinks to 483 deaths per million. Surprisingly, the lowest deaths on the map are recorded in Brunei, with 95 per million. This tiny country actually has the third cleanest air of all measured countries and is rated by many international agencies as one of the most livable places in the world. But this is also a place where swearing carries the death penalty, so I'd take that acclaim with a pinch of salt. Map by most valuable brands. If you were to take the top 500 brands from around the world and represent each country with their top performing brand in that list, what would that look like? Well, these results were taken from the 2020 valuation of the Brand Directory's top 500 brand valued companies. It seems obvious that Amazon would be the top dog of America, but it only rose to number 1 in June of 2019, overtaking both Google and Apple with a huge $220 billion valuation. Other tech-savvy top earners are South Korea's Samsung with a staggering $94.4 billion. In the banking sector, China's ICBC boasts the highest brand value with over $80.7 billion, along with Esper Bank in Russia at $12.8 billion. Despite climate protests, oil and gas giants Shell are still the most valuable Netherlands brand at $47.5 billion. And Saudi Arabia's new company, Saudi Aramco, is hot on Shell's heels at $47 billion. Brands synonymous with their countries such as Germany's Mercedes, Japan's Toyota, India's Tata, Sweden's IKEA, and even Italy's Gucci are the top of their respective country brands. But there are several countries that you'd expect to see represented in that top 500, which aren't on the shelves. Eastern Europe may look dark, but after its lengthy and costly time under Soviet rule, they're just now entering a golden economic era. An economic flux that's also reflected in the growing post-Soviet economies of Kazakhstan and Azerbaijan. Central Africa, on the other hand, has suffered from poor infrastructure, a limited tax base, scarce private investment, and adverse external conditions, making any big brand growth a hard thing to cultivate. New Zealand also surprisingly didn't make the cut, but to be fair, their economy has only been converted to a comprehensive industrialized base in the last 40 years. All in all, I'd say this is a brand new way of looking at the world. Merchandise imports and exports map. To end this, here's a couple of maps that might challenge what you previously thought about world trade. The World Trade Organization released its 2019 trade profile on each country earlier this year, detailing which countries conduct the most merchandise trade with one another, so trade excluding all commercial services. When we visualize that using flags to represent each country's primary import partner, this is what the map looks like. China unsurprisingly dominates the import market of a lot of the world's superpowers thanks to crucial exports like electrical equipment, machinery, and computers. But China itself is heavily reliant on trade from the combined power of the European Union for things like agricultural products, mining, and fuels. In a twist of perspective, key power players like Russia, India, Israel, and Saudi Arabia also listed the European Union as their biggest trade partner for imported goods. Seeing as the Union contains oil and gas supergiants like the Netherlands and manufacturer masters such as Germany, and considering China's economy is actually showing signs of slowing down, that makes a lot more sense. But if we flip on its head and show the export market of all these countries, now we can see superpowers like the USA begin to play a big role. Both China and Europe export most of their goods to the USA, which imports a lot of produce like alcohol, coffee, and bread, and non-agricultural products like cars, oils, and computers. Russia, the United States, and Israel export most of their goods back to Europe, whose top imported products are oil, mobile phone tools, computers, and agricultural produce like coffee, soya beans, palm oil, and cocoa beans. And as you'd expect, China pretty much dominates most Southeast country exports like South Korea, Japan, and Australia. But you've got to admit, without context, this map makes it look like the EU and China are plotting to take over the world. Which of these maps did you find the most intriguing? Let me know in the comments below, and thanks for watching.